Now back to the Sports Carnival live from the Trauma Center studios, where we recommend that you drink. It'll make us more interesting. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Damn right, baby. Damn right. Drinking will definitely be more interesting, Chad. I think I did a little bit of that yesterday watching that Green Bay Packer game. I kind of lost count of my adult beverages because once I left the recovery room and came back home, which was somewhere in the, I want to say the fourth quarter, because I picked it up on radio and listened to it the rest of the way. I ended up having a couple more, and I thought, this game's gonna probably be as bad as I'm gonna feel tomorrow, and it turned out it kind of was. Hey, let's bring our good friend on the program here, Green and Gold Insider, the Mad Dog of Madison, Joe Daguanno. Joe, top of the morning. I see that you're driving. How the heck are you?
Driving well. My wife is driving. I'm riding.
Nice.
We are heading back. We are heading back from Lambeau Field. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare that I haven't seen from this Green Bay Packer team since, I would say, the 70s and 80s. And it was interesting, you guys, because I had a chance yesterday. I ran into Don Mikowski at Lambeau Field, and we had a good talk, and he remembered when he was on my show back in the days in Madison. And I didn't want to say anything, but I said, "Wow, this offense is very reminiscent of the Lindy and Fonte nightmare that Don Mikowski lived through." So it was brutal. And when you get a chance to look at the tape, and I got a chance to do a little bit of that this morning, that offensive line was had, gentlemen, and that was really the key to this game. They couldn't pass block, they couldn't run block, they did shit. And so again, when you look at it, that's the core of this problem right now offensively.
Well, Joe, they didn't get your birthday message that they were supposed to win for your birthday. They did not.
I know. What the fuck, man? I mean, seriously, what the actual fuck? I mean, from a radio guy, and you guys all get this. I moved out of the 25 to 54-year-old demo this weekend. I'm now 55 plus, which means I'm basically dead. And so, the Packers basically laid a fucking egg on my birthday and didn't bring it. But I will say this. I was with my lovely wife and my son and my son's girlfriend, and I had an awesome time despite what happened on the field. But, yeah, I mean, all weekend long, it was, Friday night, my son took it on the chin with his team, still made the playoffs, but they lost. Fucking Badgers lose on Saturday. You got the Packer game yesterday. Now I hear that Pat Connaughton's going to be out for 3 weeks. I fucking hate sports.
Listen, the only thing we had to save us this weekend in lacrosse, Joe, were the Eagles. The UWL Eagles were flying high against Eau Claire, which, again, I didn't want to besmirch the University of Eau Claire because of course, your affiliation with that area through your wife. And just they're good guys overall. But that was the only thing this weekend that really did give us something to hold on to. While we've got Joe on, Chad, let's bring up that Packers slide, too, because I want to give our viewers that are watching us live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitch, on YouTube, and on Twitter a chance to see this. Joe, James Jacobson, Boone's Farm, as some know him out here, said the worst Packer game he's seen in 25 years. You mentioned the offensive line, and I know that the offensive line for this Packer team has been really underperforming. David Bakhtiari doesn't feel like he's back to any real degree yet, and maybe he gets there. But let's talk a little bit about this Jets defense, because Quinn Williams, if he wasn't a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year before yesterday, he is now. The Packers got sacked 4 times. Rodgers got sacked 4 times. Williams had 2 of those 4 sacks. Now, the offensive line, say what you will, Quinn Williams is a monster. And I'm starting to see what Robert Saleh is doing with this Jets team. And I wasn't sure, Joe, that it would work, because when you look at the defensive coaches that are in the league right now, none of them are having, except for Saleh right now, a lot of great success. Okay, Mike Tomlin got a win yesterday, but the defensive coaches have been having some issues. This Jets front line is scary good, and I think they've got some real potential.
Yeah, no, look, absolutely, and I think Robert Saleh is one of those young minds that gets the game. He understands the game, and when you look at a lot of these defensive head coaches, they're a little bit too old school, I think, for today's NFL. But I think Robert Saleh gets it. I think he gets what the NFL is about, and they've done a nice job of stockpiling talent over the last couple of years. And yeah, I think he's put together a good team. And again, let's look back at last week. The Giants beat the Ravens. So the Giants now at 5-1, I believe. And so is this a renaissance happening for New York right now between what the Giants are doing and what the Jets are doing over there? So, yeah, I don't – look, the Packers didn't get beat by a lowly Jets team, all right? They didn't. They got beat by a good team, but it's the way they got beat. And I think that really sums it up. And I would agree. That's one of the worst games I've been to in a long time. And I've been going to games since 74 at Lambeau. I covered games in the 90s primarily, and there are a lot of ugliness there. But last night, yesterday, you just never felt like this team was going to get untracked. You just never felt that they were going to get into the flow of the game. And that's the other thing. And look, we're going to find out very quickly, you guys, is Matt LaFleur a good fucking coach or not? Because right now, he has had Aaron Rodgers. We've known that. He's had Devontae Adams. We've known that. And so now it's a test for the first time in Matt LaFleur's young head coaching career. And I've always, the head scratcher for me was when he first built his staff, it was an inexperienced assistant coaching staff. And I think they've done a nice job. But now, you're 3-3 with no fucking identity. And where does he go from here? So, yeah, we're going to find out in Packer fandom and Packer land if Matt LaFleur really is a good coach. Because I will tell you, Robert Saleh right now looks like he's a good coach.
Joe, I totally agree with your take there on Matt LaFleur. And listen, you and I have extolled the praises of Matt LaFleur since he became the head coach because he has been winning football games. And really, that's what you're charged with. That is your charge. Win football games. However that works out, you just go out there and do it. And he's had great seasons. And both you and I have pretty much called how many victories the Packers would be having over these last 3 seasons with Matt LaFleur. But now we're also looking at something, Joe, and this was just previously on our screen for those that are just tuning in. We're talking Packer football with Green and Gold Insider Joe Daguanno. We're also looking at a Packer team that can't score the football. This is already, I think, the 3rd game this season where they've scored 15 points or fewer. Now, you open up against Minnesota. That was a stinker. We know that. Come back home, win against Chicago. The last couple of games, though, especially, Joe, have left a lot to be desired on the offensive side. The special teams, which we thought would be drastically improved by having Rich Bisaccia as the new defensive coordinator, fell absolutely flat yesterday. Joe, considering that there are so many issues, what would you, if you were coaching this football team, what would you look to address first? What's the most pertinent and the most pressing concern that you see right now with this team?
I'm going to go back. I think it's offensive line. Look, Joe Barry did do some adjustments in this game. Joe Barry did have Jair Alexander in the slot playing press coverage in this game. And that's the beautiful thing about being at the game is you can see so much more than what you see on TV. And so Joe Barry started to do some of the things that Packer fans have been begging him to do all year with Jair Alexander. Look, there's a very quick switch that you need to do right away. You put Josh Nijman at right tackle. You move Elton Jenkins back to right guard. You solidify that right side of the offensive line. And because right now, the left side with John Runyon Jr. and Bakhtiari rounding back into shape, I think you're going to be okay there. But I think that's the first move you need to make is you need to get Josh Nijman in there, get Royce Newman the fuck out of there, get Jake Hansen out of there, and get Elton Jenkins back to guard where he was an all-pro. That's the first step. And look, I think you clean up a lot if you clean up the offensive line. And if Joe Barry continues to look at the talent he has on that ball and accentuates them and puts them in a position to be successful, I think that side of the ball is going to fix itself because there's just too many good players on that defensive side of the ball. I think also it's no question. Randall Cobb, reports are broken ankle. I think Green Bay has to look at acquiring somebody before the November 1st deadline. And I will tell you, the player that I want right now, don't even give me Odell Beckham Jr. Fuck that. He's not going to be ready for another 2 months of the season. Robbie Anderson,
good call.
Carolina Panthers.
They want him out.
That's the guy that I want. That's the guy that I want them to make a move for. He's in the outs now over in Carolina. You're going to have Carolina take some of his salary on. But this is a guy Green Bay tried to trade for a couple of years ago. It was real interesting because yesterday I saw Charles Woodson speaking to Robbie Anderson, and he's like, he's the guy. He's the guy that Green Bay needs to get. So you make that offensive line switch. You continue to do what you need to do on defense to play to the strengths of the defense, and you go get that receiver, and this team still can get back on track. But I will tell you, this season right now, you guys, we are going to find out what we have in Matt LaFleur, and that's not a bad thing because you talked about it. We talked about him. Great coach, great regular season coach. We really didn't know, though, because I always say this: great coaches or coaches in general get lazy when they have great players. And I think Mike McCarthy got lazy towards the end of his tenure, where it's like, you know what, Aaron's going to bail my ass out because I can no longer call a good game. And I think the last couple of years, Matt LaFleur has ridden Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and now the fucker has to coach.
You know, Joe, it's harsh, but there's accuracy there, because as good as Matt LaFleur has done in the regular season, and Chad, I think it's interesting because you grew up a 49ers fan out there on the West Coast. Matt LaFleur has actually eschewed one great San Francisco 49er coach as far as wins to start a career. And of course, San Francisco was loaded at that time. The adjustments that we have seen or not seen Matt LaFleur make over the past 3 seasons, Joe, I think have left us as Packer fans, you and I in particular, a little wanting when it comes to his coaching. But there has been this incredible get out of jail free card, which was Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. What are your thoughts, Joe, on the chemistry issues? Because the offensive line is definitely something. Aaron talks a lot about chemistry with these wide receivers. Earlier this morning, Lisa Mathiel, who used to work with us, had chimed in and said, Tom Brady's better than Aaron Rodgers, like greater, TB12 greater than AR12. And I've made this mention. Tom Brady, in the middle of a pandemic, took his wide receivers out to a park and said, I don't give a fuck if the police come and try to arrest us. If the state wants to shut us down, I'm taking these guys to a park and we're throwing footballs because I don't know these guys. And I've got to make sure that I know these guys so that I can throw them footballs. I understand it's been collectively bargained, Joe, between the Players Association and the NFL that Rodgers doesn't have to come to the offseason workouts. I get that. But do you think that at some point, if your only modus operandi is winning a Super Bowl, that maybe you decide to cut the vacation a little short, come back to town, and get some work in with these guys? Because you don't want to have to be embarrassed, right? We don't want to see the Packers get embarrassed, but we do want to see, especially if the quarterback is making $40 million a year, we do want to see that buy-in, right? This is my team. This is what I will do to sacrifice my personal time to make sure this works out. It can't just be the wide receiver's fault. It can't be.
No question. Look, it was yesterday, I kept on turning to my wife and saying, wow, AR looks old. Wow, AR looks old. And then he fucking drops a dime to Alan Lazard where only AR-12 could put it. And I said, wow, that was a beautiful throw. And my wife laughed at me because she said, dude, all game long, you're saying he looks old, then he drops a dime, and now he's back. And so she totally called my shit. But here's the thing. I don't give a shit about the offseason program. I don't give a shit about that. When I saw the game yesterday and I saw it from the perspective of live, those cats weren't open. Those cats were not open. And when you don't have a receiver to take the top off of defense, that's one thing I will tell you. Christian Watson, he may be just been running jet sweeps, et cetera, but it's the same thing with MVS. All MVS did was take the top off that defense. The Packers do not have anybody right now to take the top off that defense. So, yeah, I get it. I get the bitching about Rodgers in the offseason. I get all of that. And Rodgers is a different cat. And as a matter of fact, here's a scoop for you guys. We did see him walk out last night, and he did have a female friend with him heading to his car. So he does have another lady friend at this point. Somebody said, I think it's his sister. And I'm like, he fucking hates his family, guys. Right. That's not his sister. So he does have a new lady friend. We always know that kind of skews Rodgers' game. But when you have Bobby Tunyon as your leading receiver, and I love Bobby. I love big Bobby. I think he's great. When you don't have him, when you got to go check down. Lazard wasn't open. Dobbs wasn't open. We didn't see a lot of Randall Cobb because he got hurt. Amari Rodgers, these guys are just not open. And so, again, I go back to, I don't think it's Aaron Rodgers, the number one fault. I don't think it's the offseason program. I'm going to go back to, and this is speaking from an old O-line guy, the core of this problem right now starts in the trenches.
Well, Joe, that's going to be something, as you've been mentioning all morning long, that the Packers are going to have to address. I know that coming up for Green Bay, the road's not going to get any easier. These opponents aren't going to get any easier. The schedule for Green Bay this year is actually is a decently tough one. Joe, we're going to have to drop you here. Appreciate you coming on the program, man. Really do. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll look forward to seeing what this Packers team can do to sort of rebound and get themselves back on track because at 3-3 right now, I know it's not the end of the world, Packer fans, because Bear fans have been checking in, but it sure doesn't feel like a good 3-3 team, Joe.
Not at all. And guys, if I don't go to Bemidji State with my son for a college visit, you both are invited to Madison to tailgate in 2 weeks, brothers.
I will see you there.
I don't think I'll make it. That may be a little bit too big of a trip for me.
I'll bring Morning Wood. How's that?
There you go.
Peace out, boys. Peace out.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you as always. Chatter, Green and Gold Insider Joe Daguanno, one of our favorites here, and somebody who really is all about this Packer team, Chad. And when you hear Joe basically call the shit out for the Green Bay Packers, you have to imagine that if that's Joe and the way that he's feeling, as nuanced and as loyal of a fan as he is, if that's the way that he is feeling, the average everyday Packer fan, a 12-year-old kid right now that's going to be going to school, is going to be having a pretty bad fucking day.
Well, you know what? You can take our poll on your Twitter page there, right? What is it? At the Sports
Carney. At the Sports Carney. And I'll tell you what, the Packers, they're not just leading this poll by a little bit. They are leading it by about as much as the New York Jets were leading that game yesterday. A lot.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, looks like we got to take a break. Let me hit this spot and we'll come back, huh?